ask a few questions and then we can open it up to the audience. But maybe to orient us, I'd like to ask, I guess really I'd like to ask all of you, just how did you first encounter Mahesh's story? And I guess what circumstances led you to actually meeting him?
First of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting us for this fantastic festival. And thank you for watching it. It's been a difficult film to make, and I think it's a difficult film to watch. So thank you for having the patience and sitting through it. I always make it a point to thank people who don't walk out. So, but the story was when COVID hit and the lockdown was suddenly announced without warning. Mahesh was one of the first people to leave on a cycle alone, and it made headlines. So I read the article in the Hindustan Times, and I got in touch with Mahesh because the article was exactly like the film. It was the story of this single guy uh, riding solo on a bicycle from western coast of India to the eastern coast, and it seemed like the perfect fit for a film, um, almost like Homer's Odyssey, you know. So, but he was one of the first people to go, and there was a considerable amount of interest in his story. But in 15 or 20 days, a huge mass exodus of workers began. And so his story sort of, there were so many stories that people were not interested in his story anymore. But that's what was the starting point of our film.
I guess I guess I'm interested to know like how he went from not just a subject but also like a collaborator on this, an active collaborator on this film, because I think like something, as you're already kind of talking about, that your film is like playing with is kind of like the politics of like human interest stories, how often these inspirational stories, these figures are sort of thrust into the spotlight without really digging deeper behind the meaning of maybe what they've done that's so extraordinary. For example, yes, what he did, travel thousands of miles on a bicycle, is inspirational, but like behind that are these like ideas of hunger and migrant working and issues of class and so on, that I'm just wondering like if this was something that was already on your mind before meeting him, or if it's something that sort of emerged as you got to know him, as you came to, I guess, encounter all of these stories that you were talking about that kind of diffused the sort of importance of each individual.
Yeah, I'd like the co-writer to.
I think maybe I'll start going back to a little bit to the first question of how and why Mahesh, I guess. And I think that it is because the article, not only was it written cinematically, it also, Mahesh's version of the story was very much like the film, like he is in the film, in a way that he was very proud of the journey that he made. He had a lot of fun, which is not something that one would associate with that context of because COVID was a very, very, very difficult time for most people in the world, and it was a very difficult time for him. But he didn't see it like that. His journey. In fact, the article said that the only regret he really had was never having seen the sea. So, and that spoke to us. And spoke to Suhel, because that's what we would feel if we went on a road trip, right? We'd be interested in what we see, and we'll wonder what we could see. And so that road movie the sense of the road movie was in the article, but it was also the playfulness was already in Mahesh. So I guess that's what struck to us as well. Um, and the ideas of, I think all the other ideas were there, were present, and we didn't ever feel the need to directly address them in a way because they were already there. I think we were, and this is something that we talk about a lot, is that we were really trying to show what Mahesh felt about this journey that he took, this thing that he did in his life, you know, and he's very young, he's going to do many incredible things. He's already doing many incredible things. But this was one of those things that he did and he was very proud of. And he looked at it a certain way, and we tried to, in the film, show that. And the hardship and the difficulty of his life is present and is for everyone to see anyway.
I guess I'm thinking just like as writers and like just in terms of thinking about the edit of the film, like how you thought about the road itself as a kind of like instrument for telling the story. I mean, I mean, obviously it's like of literal importance to Mahesh's journey, but um, the way you depict the road, it kind of allows you to go in certain digressions, and I think that's something what I love so much about your film is that it has this free form feeling, but everything is ultimately like logically connected. I mean, there aren't these random associations. They're all grounded in something very real, like real to his story, and but also this thing that your film brings out is just like the road as like not just a place, like a point, like a tool to get from point A to B, but also kind of like a site of like destruction. There is this point where like you're talking about this road cutting through a village and kind of tearing it apart too. So I'm just wondering like how you thought about the road as you were making this film.
Yeah, see, I think the travelogue is an enduring form of in literature as well as in cinema. From the stories that we hear about, say, people wanting to reach the North Pole or the South Pole or the Everest. And what is that about? It's not about the geography, it's about the human being. So the road often allows us to look into the human being who is journeying. And while that is true, what it also allows us to do is to draw from these various inspirations that go into these and it allows us to, I'm losing the thread of what I was trying to say, I'm so sorry. But in terms of Mahesh and this story, what we were already ready to make a road film, I feel. And when Mahesh's story came into the thing, and I feel like that, it just fit in. And then that's the film that came out.
And uh, you shot this in CinemaScope?
No, we shot spherical lenses, but we cropped it to 2.40. Yeah, but no, we did not shot anamorphic. Or yeah,
But can you talk maybe?
yeah, but CinemaScope we did. Yes,
Yeah.
that was always the plan. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Could you talk about, I guess, like just developing like the sort of the look of the film? I mean, there are these points where like it has like a very like kinetic energy of being on sort of the bicycle with Mahesh, and then other times are very like stationary sequences.
Right.
Sometimes the camera gets bumped.
Uh, I think I can just say that I was just trying to transfer the energy of Mahesh into the film somehow, because his energy is incredible in that sense. So, like the normal task of cycling from one point to another, our actors could not do. I think I also would not been able to do it, but he was just do it like anything, like walking on a street. It's so easy for him. So just to transfer all those energies, I think the rigging shots and all those things, we of course discussed all these things, that's how we did it, I guess. Yeah.
I just want to go back to that question that you asked before that, because I started thinking about something else. Um, we shot the whole film on one single road in Palghar, which is like a tribal area just outside Bombay. And we did not try to replicate what Mahesh was doing. We did not travel from the west coast of India to the east coast. We just shot the whole film on a single stretch of road. So the road is important in that sense that this is a place which right now, the place where we were shooting is now has been turned into a road that uh, connects, like, not just the bullet train, but it connects part of Bombay to Gujarat. And it was the village where we were shooting in, and it's the thing that Mamta was talking about in the film, that there's a road that connects it. So, of course, there is a road that is takes Mahesh from one place to another. That is also the road that winds back and brings him back to his against his wishes to the construction site. And this is a road that also passes through the lives of these many people who do not want that road to pass through their lives. And it is also the road that we, as filmmakers, kind of, leech into and, want to make a film about, regardless of the subject and regardless of what it goes through their lives. We are also sort of building a road through their lives with our film. So yes, the road is an important thing and means different things to different people.
And I guess, was it always your intention to, not make this just a film about Mahesh's story, but also like a film about making a film about Mahesh? Was that always part of your plan, or did that?
Yeah, because there were two things here. One is that Mahesh, when I started talking to Mahesh, it seemed like he had these expectations from the filmmaking process, where he thought that at the end of this film, he would probably gain a certain kind of fame. Uh, I mean, because cinema is such a big thing, it has the, he's acting in a film. So there was only disappointment at the end of that road, right? Because we were making a film, an art film, so to say. And Mahesh himself, when he's watches the film, he's like, it's a good film, YouTube film, you know.
Yeah, I think the way he came to terms with it, he said, "Acha, YouTube ki film banai hai." So the way he he came to terms with it, it was the fact that he felt like it would be something like the kind of videos he watches on his phone, like not a film.
So the form is essential to what we were trying to say.
And I think that the only way we could address his disappointment was to address it directly in the film. And, so because there is a disappointment that we had to constantly kind of confront. And so we had to put it in the film to say, yes, that is true, because you sense that in the film as well. So.
But at the same time, this is an era of too much information and too many images, and it's become very difficult for a filmmaker to say something without addressing the fact that uh, the question about what we are showing and who it is that is showing that film and whose gaze it is. These are the things that have to be addressed. So film essentially being a contract between the director and the audience, where the audience can be taken for a ride and they're okay with it. It's somehow that relationship has changed. So as a filmmaker, I feel like I have to be more honest about what I am doing, and that has to reflect not in the personality of the filmmaker, but in the film itself. So, which is partly why the film has the sort of form that it has. And there's an interesting question that you were saying, that why did IDFA look at it? Why did IDFA? Why is it a documentary? And that's an interesting question that I've been trying to ask myself. Why is it a documentary? Why is it not just fiction? But the reverse is true. Could it be a fiction? Like, could it just be a fiction? Then the answer is definitely no. There is at the core of it a human being and a real story, no matter how it has been treated. So probably that is what makes it a documentary. And it's interesting that a film like this would probably push the idea of what a documentary is.
I'll just ask just one more question, and then we can take audience questions. I guess I want to know about, well, a lot of the references that are sort of riddled throughout this film. You know, you're bringing in poetry, you're bringing in a performance of Kafka, Da Vinci, Diego Rivera. I guess I'm just wondering, you know, were all of these references sort of born out of like associations that you were making while you were making the film, or did it come from research that you were doing, or some other place?
I just want to say that it is not a performance of Kafka, even though it is titled on the story that is Kafka's story, Hunger Artist. It's a play that I made, which is, I mean, structurally, yes, it is about the hunger artist is somebody who starves himself in a cage for the entertainment of people, and it is the more he starves, the more people are entertained, and if he does it too much, then people get bored. So it's the idea of spectatorship and all of that for sure, and those themes exist. But I mean, that is the reference of. So Suhel and I collaborate on when I make plays. I work in the theater. He works on them as a dramaturg or, well, videographer in several different ways. And then I collaborate when he makes films. So we kind of feed off each other's work, and then that's how it builds. And I think the references in other sense, of course, there's a huge influence of Iranian cinema and Abbas Kiarostami and Mohsen Mafalbaf, and of course, there's a huge influence of, like he said, road movies and road films and films that talk about journeys and things like that. And Homer, I mean, it goes all the way back. But I think, I mean, it a little bit relates to a question you asked earlier about the various themes. I think both of us as artists are interested in this form, in forms that is it's a juxtaposition, like a collage of things that we are intrigued by, that are consumed by. So we couldn't talk about Mahesh without talking about Palghar, because we were shooting in Palghar, and because if you're shooting in Palghar, we couldn't just keep it as a backdrop. So we had to talk about Palghar, and then so Mamta is the voice of Palghar in a way, you know. So these are so the various concerns kind of have to, for in the work that we are interested in making, have to kind of be placed in some way. And I think the form that we ended up using allowed for that to happen as well. Like, it wasn't thankfully restrictive, and it opened us up to be abstract, to be make wider, I don't know, wider, have a wider conversation, have a more horizontal conversation rather than a more vertical conversation, because while the narrative and subject is one thing, we're also people living in this world, reacting to what's happening around us, being very, very curious and very interested in what's happening around us, and all of that plays into the film. So yes, it is CycleMahesh, but I also think it's Suhel in a way. Like, it's also Suhel's film. Like, it's also the concerns that he has and the humor that he has that kind of comes up.
I can talk about references, but one thing that I was thinking, and I was recently watching Pedro Costa interview, sitting here at the same platform, and I just feel it's surreal that we are also here. But I mean, I am no one to say this, but I think he's kind of an Indian version of Pedro Costa, because the way he has used Palghar, which is very small area in the, I mean, nearby Mumbai, nobody knows about it. And the way he knows it, the way he has, Mamta, and also community, he involved the whole community in that filmmaking process, which is something very rare nowadays. I mean, you don't see people doing that much with the community in that sense, with the film in respective. So that I see now as very much Pedro Costa influence in some sense. But talking about influences, Kirostami was there, Motorcycle Diary was there, and then the music references, a lot of music references there. I think one thing that we never talk about is something that how music and music influences what you used, or something that I really want this time to talk about.
I guess it's also my first film, so all my references come in. You want to use everything you know. And then probably in the next film you weed out some things and don't do everything in
down.
one film.
Process of elimination.
Yeah.
Or not in a way, because I feel like that's what I said. I feel like the form really allows for this kind of cross section of things. I mean, there is a play, and there's a poem, and then and the play used the poem and used film. So it's like you know, mm, I don't know if there needs to be a paring down, but I think it's nice. I think it's. I mean, we look at so much of like art, and I think there's so much of art, abstract art and even poetry now is looking at this idea of like what happens when you place one image with a poem which has no real apparent, like no perceivable connection, but just because you place them together something else comes out, some third meaning comes out. And I think that we are, as artists, very interested in this third meaning. So of course we made the film and we try to arrive at something, and of course the audience watches it and the audience tries to arrive at something. But what is really arrived at is the third thing, which, so the question of what is it is more important than to say this is what it is, Yeah.
Well, let's hear what the audience thinks. If you have a question, raise your hand. Yes, we can take.
Hi. So my question is more like, when did you start? When did you stop adding more things to the film? Like, when did you think that okay, this is enough, and these are all my references now? I'm content, and now this is the shape and form of the film.
I mean, it's when we got selected for a festival. So we had to stop. If we didn't get selected for a festival, I could have made it for 6 more years.
Yep, right here.
Should I just oh, thank you. Hi, thank you so much. That was really amazing. So I have, I guess, two questions. One is the crude question. I was just wondering in terms of how you funded this venture. The second question is actually, I love how you used so many different languages, right? And I was just wondering what I mean, obviously Marathi because he's in Maharashtra, but like then you have this Telugu poem and then they're speaking, I mean, Odia, right? So, and then I just so I was just wondering like how you like decided to kind of what governed those choices. Also, how is he from Ludhiana? I got very confused. I thought so anyway, so all of that, if that.
So it's an interesting question that we have to answer as Indian filmmakers, because in India there is no one language that is spoken throughout. Of course, we speak Hindi and we speak English, depending on who we are talking to. But if somebody is traveling from Maharashtra to Orissa, there is definitely a chance that he's encountering at least 10 different dialects and 4 different languages. And as filmmakers, if I make the film in Hindi, then it's reducing it to something. If I make a film in English, it's a complete alienation of what we've set out to do. So what is the right way to do it? And probably the right way to do it is also not to be very precise. I cannot follow all the dialects of Marathi that could have been spoken, but also to use the actors' languages. So, which is why the various, languages. It's the different languages that the actors are speaking. So, it has to be multilingual, but the multilingual cannot be precise or real, because there is, of course, nothing real about the whole film. So what we try to do is we listen to what the actors were speaking and we try to incorporate it. So which is why somebody who's speaking Telugu is also speaking Marathi in before and after. It's bookended by Marathi. But the Telugu poem is a poem by Vara Vara Rao. And this is of course, it's a leap of imagination, because this is a man who's traveling through Hyderabad. He's a worker. And Varavara Rao was in jail at that time. So this is something that we had to react to. And how do we react to it is we found an easy way by making one of the characters who leads the young worker say a love poem. It's a love poem by Varavara Rao. So that is one thing. Second thing is how did we fund it? Is also a very interesting question. We were funded by somebody called Tista Setalwad. She's a human rights defender and a journalist in India, and somebody who's as hounded by the government as Varavara Rao was. And it's to her credit that she saw in this film something uh, that could speak beyond politics, beyond um, what could, something that could be boxed into this or that. And she sort of agreed to help us out. And we are grateful to her. And she was the best producer we could have had because she also gave us a huge amount of freedom to do what we wanted to do. And apart from being a defender of rights, and apart from being a journalist, she's also a patron of the arts. So that's something that I think in New York people can understand very well.
And I just want to add to the language bit, is that when we started off writing the film, we were trying to be really anal about what language would be spoken and how we cast, and then it was also a matter of logistics and meeting the actor and finding out that he cannot speak this language, and hence kind of trying to see what we can do. And at some point we now realize that the film is shown much more internationally than nationally, and so everybody's reading subtitles, so nobody understands it anyway. So in a way, and I think that because so much of the film is about breaking the idea that you think you're in reality, but you're not really in reality. And so it all worked out. I mean, that's why I said the form was very convenient to all the problems we had logistically, and it helped us out.
If there are no more questions, no, we can end it there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your film.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.